This morning we got a chance to celebrate a local hero, a local icon, somebody who definitely we can hold in high regard, and we have been doing so. This morning, inside your spotlight on Now.
Now, a special event was held at the Royal Air Force to honor the most decorated West Indian serviceman of the World War II. As part of Black History Month, a plaque was unveiled to commemorate Squadron Leader Ulric Cross's distinguished and brave career in the Royal Air Force. Dubbed the Black Hornet, Cross from Trinidad flew 80 missions for the RAF, many of which were out of Marham. He was credited with helping prevent 200 bombers from being shot down in a bombing raid over Germany in 1943. He died at the age of 96 in 2013. Now today we remember Mr. Cross through his daughter Nicola Cross, who joins us to reminisce on his legacy. Nicola, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us on Now.
Good morning. Thank you for having me, and thank you for recognizing my father and his achievements.
Yeah. Now, Nicola, I would have just given a synopsis of the journey of Mr. Ulric Cross in terms of being labeled the Black Hornet and being able to, be a pilot fighter in that era. I mean, looking back on his legacy, what are some of your thoughts coming out from what it is he would have done? For example, I saw that 3-minute video that they did for he was saying, how come it is he wasn't shut down when he was a pilot? And, he was saying, it's luck. And you were saying, no, it's not luck, it's something more. And so I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Well, I think as I get older, I'm 53 now, as I get older, we talk about the role of luck in our lives, and there is a lot of luck. So I'm coming around to his way of thinking more than I was when I was much younger. But I think also it's important to remember that Trinidad is recognizing Ulric and has been for many years. And yeah, I think that's a good thing. Maybe the rest of the world is catching up to Trinidad now. But also that his achievements were much broader than the war. I mean, the war was only, 41 to 45. So yes, but he has, he's contributed to independence, the independence movement, sort of post-independence in Africa. And then he was also working back in Trinidad later on in his life. So it was a much broader experience than just the RAF. But this event was particularly RAF because it was held by them. So that was a great honor.
Now, you mentioned that his life and his journey was bigger than the RAF. And I wonder how many people know about, how the kind of man he was while he was fighting for independence for Africa when he came back here and he became a lawyer. I mean, what kind of man was he during that time?
Well, yeah. I think he always was the same person, but of course you evolve. I think he was very determined. He was very focused, and it's interesting. We talk about concepts of bravery, and I think I never really thought of him as brave because he was just so focused that he knew what he wanted and he would do what he wanted, and he wasn't swayed. So I always thought of bravery as sort of something that you had to be frightened and then overcame. But in a way, I don't think he was frightened. There were moments when he did talk about being frightened. So I think he just was very focused and did what Ulric did, as he would. But he was very kind. He was fun. He loved music, art, sport, of course. He was a great father for me. I have 2 siblings, and he was not an active father. He wasn't even present in their lives, which I think is a pity. And I think I was fortunate enough because they missed out on having a father, an active, responsible father. I was lucky enough, I think, to get the positive fallout from that one.
Yeah.
And he was a great dad for me, and I hope many other men and women appreciate that men can be fathers.
Now, you saw a side of him that no one else saw. So, for example, you would have grown up with him here in Trinidad. I mean, was it different to what he portrayed on the outside? Was he always determined, kind, that sort of thing? Or did he show you a softer side to him that many people may not have seen?
No, I mean, once you knew him, you sort of knew. Yeah, he was who he was. He didn't pretend. He didn't. Yeah, no. He was the same for everybody, I think.
Yeah.
He was soft. I mean, people generally liked him. I haven't met anyone who didn't like him. Um, yeah.
Wow.
He was himself and he was confident in who he was and therefore was able to be himself. He loved young people. He liked people. As somebody said the other day, if you knew Nicola, you knew Ulric. So there were
Mm.
always young people in the house, political conversations. He was interested. He was curious. Um, he loved life.
Yeah. Now, as part of his legacy as well, right? He was a squadron leader, a black squadron leader at that time as well. What kind of inspiration do you think he has for other men of color, women of color who are joining the RAF now? Do you think they may have looked up to him and said, because Ulric did it, I can do it? What sort of legacy you think it's going to have on them?
Well, I think that's the interesting thing, as you mentioned before, dad was dad. So all these things were going on in the public arena that I really wasn't, still, I'm not to a certain extent aware of. So I'm learning more and more. Um, so that's exciting. But so when I went to the RAF plaque unveiling, what was interesting was looking at the impact that dad had on younger people. So one of the organizer who I had been sort of interacting with, who was a Tobagonian and did a great job, the RAF was great, and Joe, petty officer Kevin was great. And I said, the first thing I said to him was, why are you interested in Ulric? And he's like, because I'm from Tobago. And I came here to his base, and this was the first base that he came to when he, came on a boat to the war. And I really felt that I'm following, I feel that I'm following in his footsteps. And you could see how much it meant to Kevin. And I realized then, even the highest person on the base, the impact who is a man of color. And I look in the way people look at my father and how it impacts on them and their lives. And I think especially in the UK, which is where the celebration was, you don't see enough black role models. Of course, we want more women black role models as well, but that's an aside. And I think for people in a culture where there is racism and there is structural racism, and I'm not pretending that there isn't, which some reports might, but anyway, that it's very important to see what you can be. So I actually went to the ceremony with a friend and her son, who is a young black boy, and he doesn't see these positive role models. So for him, it was a massive day to see all these black men wearing their medals. It was a fantastic experience for him. And they treated him with respect and honor as well. So he felt good after the day for many reasons. So yeah.
Nice. Now, Nicola, I wanted to get your thoughts on the film Hero, and I wanted to get it from the perspective as a documentary filmmaker yourself. Do you think that they were able to highlight a very, very important, an important part of your father's life, or any other thoughts you have coming out from the film?
Well, I think the impact of Hero, as I've seen it, as a citizen in presently, somebody living in the UK, is that you saw a rise of awareness of Ulric's achievements in the sort of the popular space. So that was interesting. And I just hope that people go off and do their research and actually find out more about my father and his achievements. And I think, as a filmmaker, Trinidadian filmmaker, we need more films. I mean, we need more books. I mean, Bocas Lit Fest is actually here at the moment, touring for the UK for the first time, which is very exciting. So we need to hear more Caribbean voices. And that is happening. It's happening too slowly for me, but, we need Caribbean voices. We just need more diverse voices. We're tired of the old traditional mainstream white male voice. We need to, and it is moving away from that, but we need to gallop, I think. And I think also after George Floyd, things are changing. Those changes need to be sustained as well as stepped up.
Yeah. And as a documentary filmmaker yourself, are you going to do anything on your father? Do you have any works coming up in the pipeline that we should look out for?
My sister and I are working on the Ulric Cross and family project. So it's not just Ulric, but sort of using his journey as a vehicle for looking at the Caribbean and the Cross family and the sort of sociological look at things, and also in the UK and in Africa. So it spans continents and histories, and where there is information about Dad. There are gaps. We're trying to collect everything so it's in the same place. So that may take various forms, including films, print, well, not even print, text, photographs. Again, copyright for various things is an issue, but also who he was as a human being. So we filmed some, conversations, testimonials with friends and family, people who knew him, and that continues. So that's just beginning. And yeah, the RAF ceremony has vamped things up a bit because I was away for a long time. I was away for 9 months in Egypt on a job. So kind of got off track with that. So we're back on track with that.
Nice,
yeah,
good.
And looking forward to working with the RAF as well, because they're actually going to do, I think, a historical timeline of his time as an RAF officer, which would be a huge contribution.
Good. And in terms of the monuments that you were talking about, in terms of the foundation and that sort of thing, do you think we need more of those to help with that awareness that you were talking about earlier?
Yeah, I'm not a great monument person, but they are important. I think what we need is education in schools. That's what we need. We need communication. We need, I think also generally, we need that. It's people's stories is what we need. And the stories, especially of the older generation, mixing with the younger generation, because so much is learned from our elders. And, sometimes I guess now it's more difficult to connect with older elders very often in different societies. Maybe, we don't have extended families anymore, or it's changed, the family form has changed. And I think people are losing contact. So, if, the things that are happening politically throughout the world, throughout Europe, after people fought to stop Hitler, and where we are now, I think, is a bit frightening. And I think, quite frankly, if Dad had been buried, he'd be rolling in his grave, as would many of the people who gave up their lives. And yeah, well, their life, but also their lives in the Caribbean and even in the UK and Africa, to prevent the creation of a world that Hitler would have wanted. And I think we have to remember that. And we forget because we don't have contacts with our elders anymore. That's, yeah.
And Nicola, before we go, just one final question. I know you would have mentioned that your dad was kind, he was brave, he was one person. What you see is what you get. But if there was one thing that you wanted people to remember about your dad, what would that one thing be?
When you say, initially it's a funny thing, but what I remember is a smile. There's a photograph of a smile that he has. Just his laugh. That he was kind, but he also believed in people, and he wanted to see the best for people. And he did what he wanted, but he did that in line with his beliefs of human beings really having their needs met, their basic needs met. And for him, education was critical. And that, I think, in his later years, he worked a lot with education in terms of, the Cotton Tree Foundation. And I think, yeah, it's education and being good to people and working towards creating a better society, which is what he did all his life in very different ways.
Nice. I'll take that, Nicola. Thank you so much for joining us on the Now Morning Show, and thank you so much for everything that you've been doing to ensure that people remember your father and, of course, his legacy, which we learned this morning is much more than the RAF. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Take care. Have a lovely day.
You
Happy
too.
Diwali. Belated. Take care.
And that was Nicola Cross, the daughter of former West Indian serviceman of the World War II, former lawyer, former activist as well, Mr. Ulric Cross.